And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 50th episode of the Hoosier Sound. We made it to 50, Matt.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
lit.
Yeah, we got
Finally,
halfway to 100.
I know exactly what the episode number is now.
Yeah, I do.
So,
Halfway to 100. But as I was saying, 50th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where our show has one main goal to give you our perspective of IU sports from the point of view as a student or young adult. In addition, we will also give our view on hot takes from around the world of sports. As always, I am your host, Noah Freeman, and I'm with my usual co-host, Matthew Lukens.
what's up?
Normally, we will be going live every Tuesday evening at 8:30 p.m., but if you miss us live, you can subscribe to various networks so you can listen on your own time. Make sure to check out our Twitter and Facebook at the Hoosier Sound and subscribe because all of our information is there, as well as at our website, thehoosiersound.com.
See,
All
you
right,
have
Hoosier.
trouble. You have trouble reading the script too.
Yeah, I
So
was
you
trying to.
can't blame me. So everybody that blames me all over the place that comes up to me and talks to me goes, Matt, you can't read off of a script. He's been reading off the script more than I have, and he still stumbles over it. So
I was
fight
trying
me.
to put some updates in Twitter because I know Twitter we give a lot of updates and people don't subscribe as much to Twitter because everything's there as well as our website, but it didn't work. But Hoosier Nation, it's time for some sports talk because we need to get to Matt's memorable monologue for this week in IU sports because we missed it last week.
Oh crap! All right, let's do this. I've had zero time to prepare for this because obviously classes have started.
Mm-hmm. That
But
was
I
going to be
guess,
my first comment was just how students are back on campus.
well, you know what? I will talk about that. You need to fix this. All right. There needs to be a set time for in which not everybody has class because I was trying to drive to marching band practice today, and here's my rant. It's not a monologue this week. It's a rant. It took me 30 minutes to go from Wilkie South to Luddy Hall. Luddy Hall. It took me 30 minutes because no one knows how to use crosswalks. So I want IU to teach people how to use crosswalks. If we can teach people how to use our IDs to get into our room, we can teach people how to use crosswalks. There's my rant this week.
Do you have any sports related topics
Sure,
in the realm of IU sports?
I can do IU sports. I can do the Cubs getting stealing players from the Nationals. But sure, IU sports wise, I think it's awesome that I'll go with the everybody being back on campus, kind of way that we're talking about. And so that it was awesome to see. I was walking through campus and Romeo happened to be walking past me, name drop right here. And so it was just awesome to see his reaction to everybody reacting to him. And he had this big smile on his face. So it's really cool to see everybody's back on campus. It feels like everybody's home and it's great and it's wonderful. So
Romeo's probably going to like it for the first 2 days, maybe the third day, but maybe by the end of the week, he's going to be like, all right, stop it.
Yeah, he's going to be like, everybody stop catcalling me. See,
Yeah.
the difference between like being a hot girl and Romeo is that the hot girl gets catcalled by all the guys. Romeo gets catcalled by all the guys, and he's getting catcalled by girls today. So he
And
just gets catcalled by everybody.
probably by adults too, I would
Oh,
assume.
I honestly he probably can't even go grocery shopping. He has to send like Jake Forrester to go grocery shopping for him.
And even yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Jake gets catcalled too, but
just not
no
as much,
offense,
obviously.
Jake. But you're not Romeo at this point in your career, so
All right, let's move on a little more. I got a couple things to talk about for IU sports stuff. Caden Shedrick. Last week, I talked about, if you listen to the back half of the episode where I talked about post-July recruiting updates with some of the guys that IU is in, some of the guys that IU's kind of going away from more or less. But he was a guy that in the post-July recruits, if you didn't listen, had kind of just lit up on everyone's board. Within like a couple weeks, he literally had 20 scholarship offers. That's how much he grew. He went from non-top 100, no one knowing about him, to top 100 4-star recruit. And in the wake of literally him getting 20 scholarship offers in the past like 2 to 3 weeks, he already committed to UVA. So IU was one of those people that offered him a scholarship, but he's already going to UVA. Next, women's soccer, IU women's soccer. After a cancellation against Wake Forest last Friday due to pretty bad weather, they were able to have their season debut against Miami, Ohio, and they won 3-0. So shout out to the IU women's soccer team for a strong start to the season after they had to have a game canceled. Then let's go to the men's side of things. Number 2, IU men's soccer. They get to open up their season this Friday against number 5, Wake Forest at Wake Forest. Then they have a 2-day turnaround where they get to go to number 3, UNC on Sunday at UNC. Both of them are 7:30 p.m. start times. Obviously, pretty tough start to the first 2 games of the season, but obviously this team has very, very, very high hopes for the season.
Isn't the UNC game on ESPNU this weekend?
I don't know if they changed it or not yet. Last I looked, it's still on ACC Network Extra. Since the ACC now has their network stuff, it's like the Big Ten Plus equivalent. As of now, I would assume on a Sunday with the non-week 0 college football games not being then and the NFL kind of not really being around yet, that maybe they change it to ESPN. I don't know. We'll have to keep you updated on that.
On the note of like network television and conference television networks, can Comcast and Big Ten Network work their stuff out? Because I want my parents to be able to watch the games. That's besides the that's a slight diversion from where we were going. But like seriously, I am PO'd. That's just personal. It's a rant episode today. I'm
Apparently,
sorry.
just Matt is very upset on this episode. As I was saying, to follow us, you follow us on Twitter so you can get the updates. Look at that. Shameless plug-in for our own episode. Follow us on Twitter so you can get those updates if it'll be a game that we can all watch at UNC. Let's get into the IU basketball schedule. We've obviously all the newspapers, all the podcasts, everyone has been talking about loosely the IU basketball schedule over not just the past week or so, the entire summer, because what is there to talk about over the summer? There's nothing to talk about over the summer. So everyone just kind of picks and prods at certain things. But today we actually had some news. The IU basketball schedule was finally released because the Big Ten schedule was officially released. So we get to see, obviously we knew who the opponents were, who we were playing home, who we were playing away, but we didn't get to see when we were playing them, how they stacked up, how many days we had per turnaround, how many road trips we had in a row, et cetera, when we played all these games, who our 2 December games were going to be, all that, in addition to adding some of those non-conference dates in. So we finally got all that today. Go check it out. IU basketball on their Twitter, but that's at least as of now until it gets going through the internet. That's the easiest place to find what the schedule is. But the first off the bat at the very beginning, obviously we have Hoosier hysteria earlier than normal. Don't necessarily know why. Probably has to do some football, some recruiting stuff. But next we get into our first game against Southern Indiana is an exhibition game going into our first real season game against Chicago State. I don't know about you, but it kind of looks to me, usually we have 2 exhibition games. It's kind of like we just have 2 exhibition games again before we get into some real play. And it's almost not even really real play because we play after Chicago State, we play Montana State.
I mean, Chicago State and Montana State are like, what do you call them? Oh, cupcake games. Yeah, they're cupcake games. That's exactly what they are. They are an easy W on the schedule.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if I can say that anymore after last year, but...
Well, at least Indiana State, I don't think was a sub 300 team. I think everything would, all heck would break loose.
Wasn't looking at Mark Titus to be their basketball coach. So.
Yeah. So Chicago State is the first opening game. They, with Archie's clause in his contracts and stuff, I saw that flying around Twitter today because he finally gets, if he didn't schedule any sub 300 teams, he gets an extra $125,000 off on his paycheck. Can you imagine if literally all you have to do is not schedule sub 300 teams and you already have $125,000 going into your wallet?
Yeah, but tax.
Still.
That's what people forget.
Still. That's a lot of money for just scheduling.
Yeah, that's well, he's making a lot of money, so
Yeah, he is. Exactly. Yeah. But that's how we're starting out the season. Until we get right into it, we got the exhibition game to cupcake games, and we go 0 to 100. We play Marquette Wednesday, November 14th in Bloomington.
this
That'll
is
be a great game. I think because besides Louisville, where we play them in Bloomington, I think that might be the most highly touted non-conference game in Bloomington.
yes. By the way, this is definitely the Drake episode. We went from 0 to 100 to I'm upset. So I'm just waiting for another Drake song like lyric to pop up, and then we can just label this Drake episode. That's what it is.
I don't even know what's going on with this
I
episode right
I
now.
have absolute. I'm taking it. I'm taking the wheel, Noah, and you just have to just go with it. All right.
Apparently, but looking at after Marquette, I've seen most of this non-conference schedule, and it's easy to take a second to look at the schedule. I kind of see it as either you got really tough games or pretty easy cupcake games. There's not too much in the middle because you've got your easier cupcake games. You've got, well, hopefully from what obviously the past couple of years have had, we got Chicago State, Montana State, UC Arlington, UC Davis in quotations because they're kind of in the middle. That's the only team that's on the either pretty good side or pretty bad side. But
I
then
saw
we
we
got
scheduled them, and I was like, he's definitely prepping for like an early, NCAA tournament game. Like
yeah,
that's what UC Davis is. That would be like the style of opponent we probably play at the end of the year. So I was like, I see you, Archie.
and then we got Central Arkansas and Jacksonville. Then on the other side of the coin, obviously we got Marquette, we got Arkansas, who it's an away game. They lost a lot of players though, but regardless, then we got UC Davis, the only team that's in the middle, at Duke, obviously, Northwestern and Penn State. Big Ten games, you kind of got to put them in that category anyway, because you could win or lose any Big Ten game. Louisville and Butler. So I don't know about you when you look at this non-conference schedule, but I kind of see it as just you either got a pretty hefty schedule or a more relaxed schedule. That there's not too much in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, obviously at Duke, preseason top 3 team away. But I feel like looking at Duke's schedule, we're one of, if not the first or second really big challenge that they have. And we have some experience on our roster, especially with Jawan Morgan in positions that are really hard to deal with people who have, obviously lots of experience. I feel like we can give Duke a really good game this time around compared to the last time we went to Duke. What was it, 3 years ago when we got blown out. And then Marquette, we have Marquette at home, and I'm really scared for this Marquette game because Marquette's like I don't know, some people have them like, mid 20s, and other people are like, yeah, they could be a top 10 team. So, just casual. They're coming to, IU, so people better show up for that game because it's going to be a fun game. They play a really fun style of basketball.
I feel like that'll probably be the first real game that we see most fans there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like no, because there's a lot of excitement for this season. And I feel
True.
like depending on how Hoosier Hysteria goes, and then how many points Romeo puts up against Southern Indiana, I feel like Chicago State and Montana State could be like balcony half full games, and then Marquette's gonna be a sold out game.
I don't know about Chicago State, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
but it's the first game of the season, though, so
Yeah.
like people show up for the first game of the season.
Yeah, hopefully. I hope so at least. Then November's got a lot of games. What do we got? 2, 4, 6, 8 games in November, including going around Thanksgiving. So it'll be nice to actually be able to see a lot of basketball games, most of them in Bloomington. The only ones that we have away are Arkansas and Duke, obviously tougher opponents. Then when you get into December, I looked at this and I also see end of November into December, I see a pretty hard schedule. You got UC Davis, just kind of warming it up, but then you go straight into at Duke. You play Northwestern, who has been obviously a stronger team as of recent. Then you got at Penn State, and for some reason, Penn State has always almost had our number every year. IU always makes it a close game against Penn State, no matter how bad they are. But then they got against Louisville. Then you go to Butler. So I see that 5 games span of going from Duke to two Big Ten teams to Louisville and Butler as a pretty good. It'll be a good way to see how this team is actually going to start. Basically start Big Ten season to see where they're at, because I think that 5-game stretch will basically see where they're at throughout the season.
Definitely. I agree. November is going to be a gauntlet.
November, well, the end of November into early December.
Yeah.
But then we get into Matt and I were talking about this before the episode. Basically, the hardest part during the season, at least at very first glance, without doing too much research, if you look at January is a real tough month. First, we've got 8 games. So basically about 2 games every week, which isn't too bad when you think about it. But then you got 5 out of the 8 games are away games. You've got the very beginning, you got a 3-day turnaround going from Illinois at home to at Michigan. Then later in the month, you've got a 3-day turnaround. You start at Purdue, then you go 3 days later at Northwestern. Then 3 days later, you have home against Michigan, and then 5 days till at Rutgers. So really, this is a pretty tough schedule. You got a lot of games that are close to each other. We're going all over the place. We go to Michigan, we go to Maryland, we go back home, we go to Purdue and Northwestern, then we go to home to Michigan, then we go to at Rutgers again, then we come back to Michigan State at the beginning of February. So these guys are going to be traveling really far. It's not like they've got pockets that they kind of jump around in. They kind of go all the way to the East Coast, back to the far West Coast, back to the middle, etc.
That's how basketball season works. But yeah, I mean, with this new, longer Big Ten schedule, I feel like we go later into March than we did this year. Am I crazy or?
No, because remember we had the Big Ten tournament a week early, so kind of. So it's gonna.
Oh, that's right.
Basically, It's gonna be the same thing as last year. Like having the 2 December games, so it's kind of being a normal Big Ten championship game, Big Ten tournament game, starting normal when we have it in March, but we just have those 2 extra games in December. I feel like if we didn't go to the 20-game schedule this year, we'd probably be back at no December games, but that's probably where they're gonna put the 2 December games.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense. Okay. So I'm going a little crazy. All right, fine.
Yeah. But then the end of the year, we got a lot of home games to wrap out February into March. We only got after the gauntlet finishing at Michigan State on February 2nd for Iowa, Ohio State. We got to go on the road at Minnesota, which at least we thought recently would be a lot harder than it has been, but we'll preview that later. This is just a brief overview of the schedule. Then we come back home to Purdue. Go back to Iowa. We have a couple home games again, go to Illinois, and then finish at Rutgers. So literally our last 2 games are at Illinois and then home against Rutgers. So hopefully we'll be able to have at least 2 wins going into the Big Ten tournament, have a few days off going into the Big Ten tournament. That should help. If IU is close to the top of the Big Ten, maybe that can help pad their schedule. But we've lost to Rutgers before, so we shouldn't count any chickens before they hatch.
Especially in our last game of the season. We've definitely lost to Rutgers multiple times like that.
Yes.
Yep.
And at Illinois too. And at Illinois. That was really tough to watch as well. But it'll be nice to play Purdue twice this year. It'll be the first time in a little while that we're able to play Purdue at a home and home.
I know. I can't wait to beat them both away and at home. Whoops.
That's a general overview. Do you have any last comments? Because obviously we still got a long time before basketball starts. We're going to go through each game specifically when it gets to it. Do you have any general overview about just the schedule? It looks like it's a pretty favorable schedule. If IU can take care of most of their business getting into the NCAA tournament, they'll definitely have enough on their resume. Even with the non-conference schedule, they've got a lot of tough opponents. They could even have a couple losses in the non-conference schedule, still have a pretty good resume, especially with 20 conference games.
Yeah, I only really see 2 automatic losses on the schedule, and at Michigan State and at Michigan, because we just don't perform very well in both those arenas. But I mean, looking
Almost
at the
Duke
schedule.
too. At Duke, we don't
I
play
mean,
very
at
well.
Duke too, but they're a young team, so I feel like we can give them a bit of a run. But
Probably.
Michigan State's a very experienced team, and Michigan's coming off of Final Four team, and they pretty much return everybody except for Mo Wagner. So Mo Wagner was important, but that's besides the point. I feel like going to Michigan, not our forte this year, and just in general, whether it's Michigan or Michigan State. So 2 automatic losses there, and then praise the basketball gods that have blessed us for not having to play at Wisconsin this year. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a very good point. That's probably honestly the best wrapping up point, that we don't have to play
That's the
Wisconsin
best
at
point of this
Wisconsin.
whole thing. We play at the barn. That's fine. We've actually done pretty well at the barn. We don't have to play Wisconsin. We
Yeah.
don't have to play Wisconsin.
And
Oh,
for some reason, they've scheduled at Wisconsin like every year for the past, it seems like 5 or 6 years.
oh yeah.
We've had to play at Wisconsin without any return favors.
I am fine beating Wisconsin and having a winning record against them for a year. That's fine. It's fine with me.
And they're going to be a pretty good Wisconsin team this year too.
I know, but yep.
All right.
We'll probably, knowing us though, we're going to play them in the Big Ten tournament.
Probably.
Like guaranteed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. That, especially because it'll be in Chicago, so it'll be a little closer to Wisconsin. Not much, but it'll be a little closer than obviously Indy. But let's wrap that up for the IU basketball schedule. I'm sure everyone has their fair share of podcasts to listen to about that, so we don't have to go on too long, especially when we have still a couple months, sadly, before we get into basketball play. But let's go through. We wanted to take some time to talk about the football schedule. So last year we predicted every IU basketball schedule game, and except for a couple obvious games like those games that shall not be named, Matt and I actually did pretty good predicting stuff. We had I don't remember, out of like the 31 games that we had, I think if you don't count those Indiana State-esque games, we had about 6 or 7 incorrect answers, which overall is pretty good, especially for that up and down season.
I mean, that's what, like a 70%?
Which with the team net last year, it feels like it's like a 10% how we got wrong. But let's start with, we're going to, because obviously there's only 12 games we got to talk about. So we'll talk a second about each football team, what games we have automatic losses for, because obviously football, it's a little easier to pick out those automatic losses, and then what games we might be able to maybe give a team a run for their money, especially because the home and away is pretty important in football. But let's start with Florida International. I also put down, so it's hard to find rankings of credible, I don't want to say credible, but the more credible and more reliable sites that will do rankings from 1 to 100 or 130. But I found CBS Sports, Athlon Sports, and Hero Sports, obviously not the first ones you usually go to look at rankings, but they all actually had rankings from 1 to 100 or 130. So each team, I'm going to give you what they rank them as their preseason rankings, so we can kind of see where IU stacks up against them. IU and all those preseason rankings, CBS Sports has them at 70, Athlon has them at 63, and Hero has them at 73. I've seen mostly in the high 60s, lower 70s for IU. That's also where they ended up last year in the top 100 AP rankings, was right at 73. So low 70s, that's where you can expect IU at least to be in rankings, as much as you want to take stock into that. But FIU, we got an away opener, which has been the first time in a little while that we've had an away opener, but we get to play IU. Well, we would say again if the game wasn't canceled last year, but we get to play IU again. And it's, what is it, a 7:30 game on 7 o'clock. Yep. On Saturday, September 1st at Florida International, because it was supposed to be a home and home game the past 2 years. But what do you see this game as against FIU?
Win. FIU's an improved FIU team over last year's team, and it's home for them. They're not Big Ten caliber, and so they're going to lose. So.
And FIU has also had Florida International's number recently, because 2 years ago we played them and 3 years ago we played them, and we've been able to, at least mostly the beginning of the games have been pretty close, especially because it's been at the beginning of the year. So everyone's obviously breaking into their own. So IU, I could see this same kind of thing. IU having a slow start, but then kicking it up a few notches, to say the least. Because CBS Sports has FIU ranked at 107, Athlon 109, Hero 99. So a pretty good difference from IU to FIU. FIU is one of the lower ranked opponents that we play this year. It's not as easy as some of the opponents we've had at the bottom end of our schedule, but I think we've got a pretty, if FIU is the lowest or one of the lowest teams that we play this year, we're doing pretty good in terms of opponent strength.
Yeah, strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yup.
I agree. Which obviously IU, as we've talked about multiple times, has a lot of a pretty good strength of schedule, to say the least. But that'll help it in terms of, I think, getting ready for some of these other games. So we're not playing cupcake games for IU football, which there's not too many teams that are cupcake games for IU football. But I agree. I think it'll be a win. Opening game. A lot of these guys are fired and ready. It's Tom Allen's second season. Most of them are very used to him already. He's a very fiery guy. If you haven't noticed on Twitter, just in practices, they're going to go to Florida International. Like I said, it'll be a close game at the beginning, I think, but then they'll turn it around. I think it'll be it won't be a nail biter by the end, hopefully. But let's go to UVA, which for the second week in a row, we have a night game, which I don't know when the last time IU had 2 night games in a row, but we got UVA at home. We get to return the favor for the home and home against UVA. UVA at CBS Sports is 94, Athlon 81, Hero 82. We get to play UVA September 8th at 7:30. Obviously, that's the home opener, as I just said. What are your thoughts on a not bad Virginia team last year, actually, for how they usually are? They made a bowl game last year.
There should be a win. It's a home game against Virginia. They're not a football powerhouse. They're like us. They're a basketball school. And we beat them. Didn't we beat them away last year? So
yeah, we beat them pretty handedly too by the end of it.
I feel like we're gonna have their number again, and we'll start out 2-0. Yay!
Knock on wood, compared to all IU sports. But yeah, I agree. Virginia, they did lose some players too. They had a better season than normal last year, but I don't think they're going to be able to come into Bloomington, especially pretty early into the season. And that was when we actually figured out some of our quarterback stuff, but we didn't really have a quarterback situation, and we'll have a better quarterback situation this year. We'll have the same running backs, but better. We got a better offensive line, and our offense still scored. I don't remember. It was 30-something points against UVA, and I don't think UVA's offense their offense isn't good enough, even if our defense hasn't come into its own yet with all of the newer players. I think if it has to be a shootout, then I don't think IU is going to be able to stumble when it comes to offense, which is not what we're going to say most of the time this season for IU's offense.
This is true. This is gospel, as they say.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'll put a W on that, a dub. So then we'll go into Ball State, which we got another home game in a row. We got a noon kickoff the following week on the 15th. CBS Sports has them at 120, Athlon at 120, and Hero at 98. Not by far, but at least paper-wise, they'll be the easiest opponent that we'll have the entire season. That does include Rutgers, yes. So Ball State, noon game. Ball State, well, I would say Ball State's never really given IU a tough battle, but what was it? It was either 2 or 3 years ago that Ball State was coming back, and they almost beat us at home, and it was very worrisome.
That was Kevin Wilson, time management, and fourth quarter, great coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but anyways, we'll blow them out.
Yeah,
so 3-0.
They'll be on a little bit of a run. They're playing about the same caliber opponent. Again, another home crowd. It'll be a noon game, so it won't be crazy crowd, but at least it's home and it's not away against Ball State, where maybe some of the Ball State fans think, oh, this is one of the major wins we could get this year, but no, it'll be at home. But then we get to the meat of our schedule. We don't have very many breaks from here to the end. We could lose potentially we could lose every single game. I don't think that'll happen, but potentially we could lose every single game from here on out because we will start against Michigan State on Saturday, September 22nd in Bloomington. Do you think we have another chance of upsetting the Spartans, or do you think the Spartans are back to their normal selves, the ranked teams that don't really lose?
I think they'll be back to their normal selves. I think we'll probably do the typical IU football thing, which is that we hang with them in the first half, and then they just blow us out in the third quarter, and like all my hopes and dreams are ripped out of my soul. But I could see us winning it if their quarterback either one has a bad day or two he gets injured. But that's the only way I can see us winning that game against Michigan State. But they're very reliant on very good quarterback play because Lurky for them has been great as of recently, especially later last year. So anything goes wrong with him, definitely we can spring the upset. But that's like hoping lightning strikes. So
yeah, and obviously we don't ever want to hope that someone gets injured, but
correct.
basically all of this is just, of course, thinking that predicting or at least talking about that there's going to be no injuries, and of course that's going to go for every game. But with Michigan State, I really want to say that there's going to be an upset. I really hope, obviously, that there's going to be an upset. Everyone's going to kind of be hoping that that's going to be another upset because that's the only team we've actually upset in the past very recent history. Because we always get close with these ranked opponents, but Michigan State was finally that one that we actually got to, and then they just turned out to be a terrible team that year. But yeah, usually Michigan State has our number. I don't think they'll be able to. I want to pick some upsets in here, but I just don't think Michigan State's going to be one of them. I'll put a loss as well.
Nope.
But then we will travel to Rutgers on the 29th of September. Rutgers is actually, and I don't even need to give you the rankings from Michigan State, but they were all at the lower teens, 10, 12.
Yeah.
Rutgers, they're pretty consistent actually throughout everyone. They were last year's AP ranking. This is 2017. They were 87th. This year, the preseason rankings, they had CBS Sports was 84, Athlon 87, Hero 86. So very smack dab in the middle of the mid 80s. So a team that has obviously beaten IU in the past. If they have stumbled, a team that IU can not easily beat, but a more manageable win. If IU can pull it off, it is away. Some of those Rutgers fans can get a little interesting to say the least. So what do you think about this Rutgers game? Because I can see it going both ways.
4-1. That's what I'm going to say. I think we beat Rutgers. I think they're a trash football program. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I hope there are no Rutgers fans listening. Actually, there were Rutgers fans that tried to get into a Twitter argument with us about saying how much better Rutgers basketball was than IU basketball, and it was really funny. So
those people from New Jersey, man, I don't know what's wrong. There's something in the water. I don't understand. Anyways.
Yeah, I think I think Tom Allen, at least we are all hoping that Tom Allen doesn't have some of those Kevin Wilson type of games where we're just, oh, wait, Rutgers should be an easy win. And then we lose to Rutgers in the last quarter again because we're IU and we lose to people at the very last minute. But I think we'll be able to get a win. This is going to be a stronger team, especially because all these guys know that we're going to have to get some of these wins before we get into a lot of these really, really tough opponents, not just top 25, but top 10 opponents, because Michigan State will probably be there. But really, we've got a pretty bulky and hefty schedule throughout the rest of the thing. So I think they're going to be like chance to get to 6 wins. We really have to be 4-1 at this point before we travel to Ohio State the next week on Saturday, October 6th. There's not going to be, obviously it's going to be a very Ohio State crowd. It's going to be pretty loud. It's an afternoon game. The only IU fans that will really be there is the Marching 100.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah, Ohio State.
I think this is the easiest game to predict literally out of all of the wins or losses.
Well, probably. Yeah, this is probably a loss. This is definitely a loss. Unless Urban Meyer is not there. But
Even so, I think at
It's
Ohio
still a
State,
loss. It's still a loss. It doesn't matter.
even at Ohio State, IU has played. Usually, IU plays Ohio State really well in the first half. It's literally a lot of teams they'll play well in the third quarter, even, and then blow it in the fourth. But Ohio State consistently, IU has played Ohio State very well, at least in the past 4 or 5 years, really well in the first half. But then, almost literally the start of the third quarter,
Hey,
it just starts to go downhill, and more than most teams.
it's easy to run out there with a bunch of adrenaline versus Ohio State and just play out of your mind for the first quarter and a half.
Yep. And they get tired, which is what we saw at the opener last year. They were playing really well against Ohio State until Ohio State's backups were obviously even better than our starters. And that's just what happened. Everyone started to get tired.
Yep. We don't
And
have a deep football team. We have a great starting lineup and not a very deep football team.
And I think we could hang in there with Ohio State. I think it'll be another first quarter or two. It'll be pretty close, but it'll depend on the same thing that happened last year, whether how much the defense was out there. Because you could just really see in that home opener where we had a sold out stadium for the first time in a while, but where you could really see how the defense was really ready, but then the offense could get literally nothing going. So the defense had to keep coming back out there time and time again. They almost didn't get like a minute or 2 minutes in between sessions sometimes with incomplete passes. And it was just, you could tell how tired they were getting, even at the beginning of the year where there weren't really many injuries as of on the defensive end. It's just hard to play them. Obviously they're going to be really hard to play, even if Urban Meyer gets fired tomorrow and they have they are going to be pretty panicky for the rest of the season. I don't think they're going to be that panicky.
I will put all my chips on red, or otherwise known as he's not getting fired.
Oh, yeah. But I was just saying, even if all panic breaks loose at Ohio State, it's not going to break that loose.
No, I don't think so. They'll beat us handily. Yeah. All right, moving on to the next match.
Yeah. And obviously with some of these football games, it's going to be pretty easy for Matt and I to predict the same things as of now. But right now we're both at 4-2 with the same wins and losses against the same opponents. But we'll go to Iowa. It'll be a home game.
Home at Iowa. We're not going to Iowa.
Yes, we are going to Indiana to play Iowa at home because that is our homecoming game. That will actually be at noon, where it's on ABC, ESPN, ESPN2. That'll be a big media thing. Iowa will actually be a pretty good team this year in terms of these rankings. They are 32 CBS, Athlon 35, Hero 38, in a lot of other top 25 things. They've even had them squeaking into the top 25 at some. Iowa's going to be back to more of their normal selves than as of late. So that'll be a great game, especially because even for a noon game and IU fans not showing up for noon as much as others, I think at least as of homecoming and ESPN outing, I think there'll be a lot of fans there. It'll be a pretty big crowd. And I think we got a really good game against Iowa on homecoming.
I think we beat them. I do. I think this is a win. I think with a homecoming crowd and them coming off the Ohio State game, I think they're going to be hungry for a win, and I think this is the perfect time to put Iowa.
I agree. When I looked at this schedule beforehand, I was trying to find 6-6 wins because obviously optimistic for IU. You can always be like, oh, they got a chance to finally be the year where they upset those teams and get to like 7-5. I'm not sure how much I'm going to even put much stock because we're already at 4 wins and there's a couple other games that IU could possibly win. I'm going to say it's a loss. This will be the first time Matt and I are going separate ways. I think it'll be kind of like Ohio State a couple years ago. It's really, really close, literally until the last minute or so. I think Iowa's just going to squeak it out. I don't know if IU fans will go away or it'll be a hot game or something like that. I'm going to say a loss. So,
a hot game in October? I don't think
know.
So.
Yeah, you never know in Bloomington. You never know.
That's true.
So Matt has 5-2. I have 4-3. That's homecoming against Iowa. Then we will go to Penn State. Or no, we won't go to Penn State. We'll stay home at Penn State. It'll be another game. It's ABC, ESPN, ESPN2 network stuff. So, oh man, obviously Penn State lost. Saquon Barkley, they lost some other people, but they're still pretty, obviously they had a great season compared to their rebuilding stage. They're back into the top 10 for most rankings ever. Some of them even have bordering on top 5, at least as a preseason stuff. Do you see any hope of IU beating Penn State, even though Penn State is not just had our number, but they've beat us by a lot the past few years?
All right, here's the thing with Penn State. I don't think they're that good. I thought Saquon Barkley had a lot to do with their success last year because you had to load the box against Penn State, and therefore their passing game load like took the load off the passing game. I think that Penn State is very vulnerable this year. I don't think they deserve that ranking at all. I didn't see anything last year that told me they deserve that ranking at all. And I don't think they made that much of an improvement. Also, James Franklin's like a great person, but I don't think he's like the greatest coach to ever coach, college football. And I know this is coming from an IU fan, but like I don't think Penn State deserves to be in the top 10. Fine. Top 15, maybe even like late, like early 20s, perfect. Put them there. That's fine. But top 10, I don't think they deserve to be there. I think we can give them a game. Finally, it's at home. It's after we come off of a nice win against Iowa on homecoming. People are pumped. They show up for the Penn State game. We give them a show, and we lose at the last second to Penn State. But it's a step in the right direction for IU football.
Yeah, I don't know if I can even give them. Well, I agree. Maybe Penn State's just a little overrated, but I don't think they're overrated enough to where they can beat IU. It's a lot of they actually just did it was some like anonymous interview that I don't remember who interviewed 129 of the college coaches anonymously, and they asked who their the most overrated or coaches were that they thought, and Penn State and Florida State, they were both tied for the top. So give it what you will. I think it'll be a big crowd again. I don't think they pull it out against Penn State. They just haven't in football against Penn State, even when Penn State was in the rebuilding mode after we all know what. But I want to say a loss again. So I think that has me at 4-4 going into the last 4 games. Matt's at 5-3. Going into Minnesota. And keep in mind that we have also not said that our bye week has happened yet. We still have Minnesota, and then we have our bye week. So we will go through 9 games before having our bye, which is not normal for IU. Usually it's in the middle of October sometime. Usually IU, at least, I don't know if that's been on purpose or not, it's been around 6 or so games, 5 or 6 games before we had our bye week. So that'll be different for everyone. Not just the coaching staff, but a lot of the players, because they've been more used to about half than having a bye week. So I don't know if that gets them more tired. Maybe that gets them. I don't know. We'll have to see how they react to that. But then we're going to go to at Minnesota for another night game. That's 3 night games in a row for IU. Good job, at least before some other games are announced. But we go Friday. Yes, I said that right. Friday, October 26th at Minnesota. How do you like a Minnesota team that is getting better? They are, getting better actually, just a little slightly. They're still ranked. CBS has them 78, Athlon 73, Hero 69. I don't know. I think they're still a decent football team, but it's hard to judge them right now because they're in the middle of some stuff, to say the least.
Honestly, this one's a coin flip. I think I could go either way, but I'm going to go the positive. Actually, nah, we're going to lose this game because we're coming off of Ohio State, Iowa, Penn State, 3-game stretch. Probably going to have some injuries. Knock on wood that we don't, but probably will.
It's
looking at it realistically, and people are like, ooh, we got a bye week next week, and it's a quick turnaround in a Friday game. So I'm going to say this is a loss at Minnesota.
And we're traveling to Minnesota. It'd probably be a little colder than we're used to at the end of October.
Almost November.
Exactly, yeah. It won't be cold, but colder than what they've been used to all the way up there. I'm going to say the same thing. Away thing, being a Friday night game, the students are going to be booked, or the players are going to be, especially at the end, like you said, the end of our 9 games before a bye week, they're just going to be really tired. And yeah, I echo everything you said, especially injuries too. I think that'll be a loss. I think they could make it a game, but I just think you're going to see a lot of tired legs. I think they could beat them maybe at any other point during the season, but just the end of that stretch. Also getting into the players have had 2.5 months of school already with really no breaks because we're getting close to Thanksgiving break. It'll just be the antsiness. I think that's not necessarily a good game. And we're not even looking at really matchups yet because we don't know how good Minnesota honestly is going to be this year. I could see them getting better to where they're maybe 7 or 8 wins, but I could also see them having 4 or 5 wins. But then we got a break. Then we'll play Maryland at home. At least we've been playing Maryland consistently home and away. So we go back to a Saturday game, November 10th. Do you see redemption against Maryland for what we thought was an easy win last year to make a bowl game? Or do you see Maryland, who is a much improved team, regardless of their situation? Do you think their situation is going to play a part in how they're doing by the end of the year? Or do you think Matt Canada, a former IU offensive coordinator, will be able to beat this Indiana team?
I think this is a trap game. This is your stereotypical trap game where you have a week to prepare, but are you really preparing for Maryland or are you preparing for Michigan? Because I think Maryland's going to have a subpar year, probably because they're going to fire their head coach.
We got two weeks and an extra day to prepare for Maryland. We're just coming off the bye week.
Oh, I know. So you have 2 weeks to prepare. And
so
then
also 2 weeks to think about Michigan is what you're saying?
Yes, 2 weeks to think about the next game at Michigan. And so they're going to be thinking about Michigan and not Maryland. And this Maryland team's probably not going to be good. I mean, they're probably going to come in with like 3 wins, maybe. And so they're going to come in with 3 wins and they're going to be like, oh, we can steamroll this team. And they're going to fly out to a flying start. We're going to be trying to play catch up. And then we're not going to be able to do it. And we're going to lose this game at home. So, yeah.
All right, Maryland rankings, CBS 59, Athlon 51, Heroes 60. I agree. I think it's a trap game. I've had a lot of losses on here, and I don't want to put a win just to say that there's a win, but I really do think IU is going to beat Maryland this time. I think they're going to be just a little down, especially after all that's happened, because it's not just the coaching change. It's also all an emotional toll from what's happened all the way since the end of July. Or the end of June, sorry. And I think it's just going to be an emotional toll. I think it's going to be really hard this year for them to really get around. I think next year they're going to be pretty good because they've had a lot of good recruiting classes. We'll have to see how their coaching change situation obviously goes. But I'm going to put IU as a win because I think maybe, or at least I hope maybe they don't look too far at Michigan because I don't know how much of a chance they have against Michigan. But Michigan, do you see a chance that we go travel to Ann Arbor, travel to the big house where IU has never played well, travel to a Michigan team, which I don't remember the last time we've beaten. Most people don't remember the last time we've beaten. Do you see a chance at the end of the year, cold November game, traveling to their, do you see them having any shot at all against beating Michigan?
I mean, we always like to give them a heart attack recently. I mean, you look at like the last 4 or 5 years, you've played them consistently close. But I think this Michigan team's different. I really do. I think this Michigan team is going to be much better than they were last year. And we're not going to be as good. And according to my thing, this is going to be our 4th straight loss.
That's true. Yeah, you just had the 4 straight loss. But in the wake of all the Ohio State stuff, and Wisconsin, I think is going to be they're a team that's going to be overlooked in the Big Ten this year. But thankfully, we don't have to play them. If you look past Wisconsin, I think with all of the stuff with Urban Meyer recently at Michigan, they were a good team last year, and I think they're going to be even better this year. But then you put into the fact, what do you think they're thinking about these past few weeks when Ohio State has had a bump in the road and they don't have a coach right now, and they're trying to get through all this. Michigan's been licking their chops. I think Michigan's going to try and really push to winning the Big Ten this year. I think they're going to be nice. Yeah.
The only way we win this game is because we're their trap game. We're their trap game. We coming off of 3 losses in a row. We're pissed. We come into this game, and guess who's Michigan's thinking about? They're like, we got this Big Ten title wrapped up if we can just beat Ohio State. Because obviously we're going to beat IU, and we roll into the big house, we beat Michigan, and the entire college football world just flips their, insert curse word.
That's wishful thinking.
That's very wishful thinking.
That's
It's not
very
going to
wishful
happen.
thinking.
It's Jim Harbaugh. It's not going to happen.
That's what we'll be thinking going into the game, but I think I think most people almost is maybe even easier than saying at Ohio State losing. We just got a tough draw against at Ohio State and at Michigan this year. It's going to be really hard to pull that out at the very end of the season, especially when Michigan might be trying to run for the top of the Big Ten, obviously. So I don't think that they're going to look past any game. Then we've got Purdue. We've got
we're
at home again. We get to not go away this time. We get to post Thanksgiving. Purdue comes here. Are we going to have a revenge game for last year? Are we going to be able to get into? Because do you have 6 wins yet? I don't remember. I didn't count.
I have 5.
You have 5 wins. So we both have 5 wins. Are we going to get to? Of course, it comes down to Purdue. Are we going to go to a bowl game, or are we going to be left behind and Tom Allen's job is going to be questioned, even though it's a second year?
I think his job's going to be questioned. I don't think we win this game because I think this Purdue team's like an 8-win team. I do. I think this is a really good Purdue team. As much as it hurts me to say that and for it to come out of my mouth, I do want to be right. So I think we're going to be 5-7 again this year.
Purdue is CBS 45, Athlon 45, Hero 57. I honestly think they were actually, and as much as it pains me to say that, I think they were giving them a little bit too hard of a time because they didn't lose really that much talent to the NFL. They didn't lose their coach, which everyone thought they were going to lose their coach for. They're going to be a better team.
Oh, I was so ready for laughing at the Purdue fans that Jeff Brown was there for 1 year. I was, anyways, never mind. Forget it.
Yeah, I don't even know what I would think, because I'd like to think that home game, the players are going to be hungry to go back to a bowl game after not going. I like to think that, and honestly, I think it could be a coin flip just because it's a home game for IU. But I think Purdue's going to be pretty healthy, and I think I'm going to lean more towards Purdue going, which is hard because I think IU has a decent shot at going 6-6 this year. A lot of these games are up in the air because I think you and I could also easily have like 50% of these things wrong just because IU is generally a streaky team sometimes. But I'm going to say that they just can't pull it out against Purdue. I think it's Purdue's time until at least for the very near future, that Purdue's just going to start to be doing pretty well. I don't know. You got any?
I mean, honestly, if we look back at the schedule, I think you can come up with a couple maybe inferences, which is that this can all change based upon 2 things. Well, first off, the first thing that we don't have to worry about is our defense. I think our defense is going to be great again, and it's weird to say with IU football. But the 2 things this is dependent on is all on offense. Who's the quarterback, and does he stay healthy? 1, and 2, does Morgan Ellison step up and take that running back role like the burden himself? Or 2, does the committee actually work this year? So if those 2 things happen, I think we could look at a 7-5, maybe even an 8-4 IU team where we get one of those marquee upsets, and like we're looking at, whoa, IU football is like actually a thing this year, like, and might be for the future, and we're gonna get good recruits. Or you could go, well, we end up with Peyton Ramsey, who then gets injured, and then of course this is we're predicting here. Peyton Ramsey gets injured, the Arizona transfer doesn't work out, and then the running backs are an absolute disaster this year.
Almost like last year.
We're looking at a 4-win year. So, I wouldn't argue with either one of those viewpoints.
I think, and as much as it's pretty easy to say that every year for IU football, I think it's pretty up in the air for all the reasons you just said. And because also a lot of these games are kind of hit or miss. A lot of these teams could also do like Minnesota could kick it up, and that could be actually a really hard game to do. Iowa could actually get into the top 10. That's not out of the norm for Iowa. They're actually in there a lot. So that could be a pretty hard game. some of this might not be able to work. IU did lose a good amount of talent to the NFL, so they've got to really adjust to that, especially on the defense, because it could take the defense a while to get adjusted. And even if you say the defense takes too long to get adjusted and we drop a game like UVA or something that we weren't supposed to, that's going to be really hard ground to make up, and it could be it could go one way or it could go the other.
Yeah, seriously, this season could be like IU football's, on the rise. Like we're doing what Maryland was supposed to do this year and like get like an 8-win team, or like do what Maryland's gonna do this year and gonna get like a 4-win team, and we're just gonna go backwards.
Yeah. So also, again, we're doing all of this on Tuesday, August 21st. We don't even know.
Right. The season doesn't even start.
We don't even know what the situation at Ohio State's going to be like. We don't even know what the situation at Maryland's going to be like. Who knows? Some other FBI sanctions could come out, and even the football program could be caught up just because it reaches that far into it. I know there are a couple football programs that are starting to be looked into it because of all these FBI sanctions coming out in basketball. You never know. There could be a lot of just in-house program stuff. But as of now, at least, sadly, we both have IU not making it, or maybe 5-7 making a bowl game because everyone else stinks. Who knows? But that about wraps it up for our 50th 5-0 show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you all so much for joining us. Stay tuned through updates on Twitter at the Hoosier Sound, Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and visit our website, thehoosiersound.com, to find all of our information regarding our podcast. As always, send us your questions as the audience, so be sure to comment, chat, or send us a message at contact@thehoosiersound.com on what questions you have, and we'll get them on our next episode. Lastly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. It really helps so that we can grow this podcast. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.